All right, so before we get started, I'll show you the end product of what we're making. This. Okay. So first off, we're going to be looking at Adobe Photoshop and finding a kanji character. Okay. And then we're going to be separating the elements. We've got the stitches that go on top and some go on bottom. So we're going to have to separate a very black and white image into little sections so that we can dictate where these embroidery stitches are going to be, either on top or on bottom. See how this element right here goes in the back of these two elements. Okay, so think of these as elements, and they change in Z, so up and down. So first we'll do that in Photoshop, and then we'll bring it over to Stitch Era, and I'll show you how to create it so that these elements are like this. All right, so for this first half of the video, we're going to be looking at getting a character called a kanji character. Kanji is written in a certain way where it has like a depth value. So in other words, you put a stroke down and you put another stroke on top of that stroke. So we're going to be using kanji in order to look at embroidery and have a depth value in our embroidery. Okay, so search the internet for a kanji word. Doesn't matter what it is. It could be a two-stage word or a single-stage word, but basically what you're looking for is something like this. It doesn't matter the resolution at all, not even close, because we're going to be putting it in a very low-res document for this. Okay, so quite literally, I could click on anything, doesn't really matter, and just get the first Google link if you want to. But you might want to pick out something that's kind of relatable. So I can right click and just say copy image. And then we're going to open Photoshop up and make a certain size document. We're going to go File, New. We're going to go inches, and we're going to go 5 by 5, 72 pixels. And we're going to go Edit, Paste. Okay, so pretty low res. Also, you might want to make this a little bit bigger so that it actually takes up the 5 by 5. Okay, then hit the Move tool. If you don't get the show transformation, if you don't get these little transform nodes, it's this little thing right here that turns them on, like that. All right, so that's how you get it into Photoshop. Okay, I've already chosen one that's a little bit more complex than that, so I'm going to be using it to show you the next breakdown. All right, for this next section, we're going to have to think about how this is drawn out if you were to paint it, okay? If you were to paint it, you would make a stroke, then you would make another stroke and another stroke, and these strokes may be the last 3 strokes you would make. So you got to kind of think about if you were to dip ink, put it down, dip ink, last 3. Okay, but we need these as separate elements. All these little pieces need to be separate elements. So I'll show you how to do that. We're going to first go and make this document. It could be, I would say I can get them in about 3 or 4 duplicates. I'll show you what that means. So canvas size, and right now the width is 5. I'm going to go 15. That's 3 times bigger. Okay. I'm also going to choose this little arrow so that the arrows look like this, and hit OK. Now I got some room to play. And now, if you hold Alt with the Move tool, you can make duplicates. So I need to make 3, maybe possibly 4 duplicates of this. All right. So what I'm going to do is just kind of zoom in a little bit. Go. Space bar here to move around. So here's my brush. What I need to do is make a new layer. Go to layers. And on top, we make a new layer. That button. And I can use the bracket keys on the keyboard to make this small. All right, now what I'm going to do is start separating these elements out. So in this case, I can get this element right here. If I use X, I can start painting white. Okay? So now I have this lone little element over here. I can also possibly get this element. And I don't want anything else. Just to keep this so it's easy for you to understand what I'm doing, I'm just going to erase it. You don't have to erase everything, but if your brain can't see the bigger picture yet, just erase it. I can get those 2 small elements out of this one. Boom. All right, next one. So maybe this one, I can get this element. And if to speed the things along, I can choose the hard brush. So I can go the hardness value up here, and that'll make it so easier. They're incredibly low pixels. So I got that little element. And let's see, I can probably get this little element and this little element. This is why I chose this one, because it's very complex and it requires like the worst case scenario. Spacebar, let's move over. Which elements am I missing? Well, I'm missing this back element. Okay, so boom. And we get rid of all this, all of this. Good. So I really didn't need this one at all. So I can get rid of it. Got all the elements that make up that one word together. I would have to put them all back together, but we're going to do that in a different program, not this one. I'm not going to use Photoshop for that. I'm just kind of trimming these up a little bit to make them look good. And now I'm going to do that same thing down below. Same process. I mean, you could watch this or you could fast forward it at this point until I get done with it. Want to see another example of me breaking the letter down? You can. Got those 2 this time. What am I missing? I'm missing Nice. And I'm missing the back element. Oh. It might fly. And if you get to, let's say you got this little thing right here, that's not going to show up too bad in the other software. The other software is called Stitch Era, and it's pretty forgiving when it comes down to like job. You can move the vectors around. Nice. And again, I did not need the last one. I'll eliminate that. So you should probably have the original somewhere. You know, like have your original somewhere that you know how to put this back together. In my case, I have this. You could probably find your original where you screwed with it. So what I'm going to do is use the marquee tool, and I'm going to encompass only the elements that I need. Make sure I keep the height. Just like that. And image, crop it. And then I'm just going to save this out by exporting it. Export as. And export it as a JPEG with great quality. Export it out. All right, now you got to get that on a flash drive and be able to bring it out to the embroidery machine where we're going to go to the next step. All right, so before we get started, this is exactly what we're kind of looking at. We want something with this where it has a depth value. So this is our end goal. What we're going to be doing is first importing the JPEG in here, and then we need to design this. Okay, so I wanted to show you the end goal ahead of time so you know where the direction is headed. All right, to get started, we're going to just hit this button. That will make a new design. Okay. And then we're going to go to catalogs, and we're going to go browsing the desktop for my design where I left it. You should probably not have it on a flash drive. You should probably run it on the desktop. Be a lot easier. There it is, kanji lesson. I'm going to click and drag it out. And then I'll close this window. There we go. So first thing we're going to do is vectorize these shapes. It doesn't matter how low res they look. I'm going to go convert to vector. This is under the image tab. I'm going to hit filter. And you're seeing over here these gray elements. So I don't need all of these. In fact, I can get rid of most of them. So hit Control, click on each one of these and hit Combine. This will change the color over here, but it will allow it so I'm only dealing with one color. All right, now we're just kind of doing a little thing where we're playing around with the minimum and sharpness. For this design, I went max. Let me try. I'm looking for a nice vector. That looks about good. So let's hit return. Now these are vector shapes. They appear over here. Okay. And what we're going to do first is go and highlight all of them. by just clicking and dragging, net select them, and go into autocomplete under vector. Vector, autocomplete. Okay. That will allow us to now go into the embroidery mode and choose these different options. In this example, we're going to look at only turning area. So we're going to go turning area zigzag. If this box pops up, you're good to go. If it does not, you have to repeat the steps I just went through until it does pop up. So we're going to click on an element and hit return on the keyboard. We're going to repeat that. All right. So now that that's done, we can close this window out. And then we go into the select objects. And this is where we kind of play around with these things that it got made right here, the little nodes. So because the vector was kind of broken up here, we can move those out and make it much smoother. Like this little tip right here, we can probably get rid of that. Makes it nicer. So each one of these just needs to be cleaned up just a little bit because our vector wasn't all nice, fluent. I like moving around using this and this in this program. Zooming in, I use the mouse. Good. Maybe just a little bit on this one. I don't like how this one a little rounder. And there we go. And I would say this is probably not going to be as dark, so round this up a little bit. All right, we have all our elements now. So in the next step, what we need to do is bring these elements, and we can move these around like that. And when we hit return, they go back to rendering. Okay. So we would need a picture of our original canvas in order to put these back together. Kind of memorized it, so if I screw it up, I might have to look somewhere, but I feel like it was taller than that, so I'm going to move this one up a little bit. Yeah, that looks better. One was here. One was here. So let's say I need to move a lot of these. Like, can I hold control and click in many of them? No, but you can over here. So it's kind of odd, but if you want to hold control and click on these, you can, and you can move many of them at once. But it's very hard to understand which one these are. If you double click on things, it'll go into this section pack. So make sure that you only click single on it. Yeah. we go. Now, to make it a little easier to understand, we can get rid of our vectors. If you hold shift, you can now highlight all these and delete them. Okay. We can also turn on 3D right here. So it'll show which elements are on top and is this in alignment with each other. So all these elements need to be moved over. So to make it a little faster, I'm going to go over to here where I've arranged all of them. Okay. This is how you arrange things. So we got this element. Okay. I want this on top of everything. These go in a certain order. So this will go before this one. This will go this one. If you want this element on the top of everything, you would just make sure that you move it to the bottom. If you want it on the bottom of things, you move it to the top. So for example, I'll move it. And now it's in back of the other element. Okay? If I want it to be forward, click anywhere and it auto renders. That's how you arrange these different axes. So now we need to change the puffiness of these. We want max puffy. In order to do that, you highlight all your red elements. This is the object manager. And down below, we have our option. We want this option, underlay, checked. We want it to be the double zigzag. And we want the density to be 1. And if you want to play around with 1.25, that's fine. Just know that as this goes up, the puffier it gets. Other things that need to be in here is it actually, yeah. Under yeah, the rest is good. And that, 5.65. But this shouldn't change, but in case it did, the density under the body color needs to be 5.65. And why that number is because if you calculate the thickness of the needle, this is the max we can handle with the needle that we have. If it's any higher, it will start cutting into the fabric instead of stitching. So arrange those, change those elements, and let's go on to the next step in the design. All right, so for the next step, we need to make sure that this is 5 inches. Okay. Again, this one right here, I'm just going to delete these vectors out so I can show you. If I highlight all these, I can click on this and you can see that there is a measurement on the left hand right here. It'll appear. As I click or drag it, you'll see that measurement. I need that to be 4.5 because I'm using a 5-inch embroidery loop. Okay, 4.5. And if you click anywhere, it'll auto render again. Now that I did that, I highlighted it all again. Go to embroidery, and I'll need to do the following. So we go to start and end. We go start point at first section, and then endpoint, we want endpoint at last second, always. And then lastly, we hit center design. So let's look at the measurements here. We got 2 inches from the center. Here's my 0 mark. Got 2 inches, and over here we got 2 1/4 and 2 1/4. So we know that this is going to be 4.5. Another way we could do that again is highlight it and just kind of like click on it, and it'll tell us the measurements in the corner. Anytime we move it, we're going to have to redo the exact procedure, except for we do not need to do the start point. We just need to hit center design. So if I move this over here, I just hit center design. If in doubt, center design. Doesn't hurt anything. All right, now we export this design. And I'll export it into a folder on the desktop called save. All right, so that's it. That's how you export it out of Stitch Era. And we can go to the embroidery stage now. I don't know if I'm going to cover that on this video. I've already done a video about how to load and how to do everything on the embroidery machine. So please follow that video. If this does conclude into another video about that, good. But for right now, this video is all about getting it in, making all the stitches, and then exporting it.